video is sponsored by me disappointing myself, because I totally could have read my entire o.w.l.s TBR, but I didn't. Hello my lovely friends, it's Margaret. Today I am bringing y'all my April wrap-up. I know, we're in May, we're about to go in June. Actually, it's probably June when you're watching this. I'm behind. I'm gonna get caught up, I promise. My May wrap-up is gonna come out sometime in June. It's fine, it's fine. Everything's fine. The world is not falling down around me. I'm just chronically behind on all of my wrap-ups. However, the good news is this wrap-up is gonna be super short because I only read 6 books in May. April. We're in April. To start off with the stats, again, I read 6 books in April. That comes to 1,767 pages. I don't know how many pages per book that is because I don't care. That's almost 300 pages per book because 1,800 would be, you know what I mean. That breaks down to 1 mystery, 2 fantasy, and 3 graphic novels. And then I had 1 5-star read, 3 4-star reads, and 2 3-star reads. So kind of a middling month. Not the worst month I've ever had. Not the best month I could have had. But still, April was a month. It really was. I'm going to separate these by the type of media that I consume these as. So the first exam I finished for my o.w.l.s was the Transfiguration exam, which was to read something with red on the cover. And for that, I read The Flash Rebirth Volume 1, Lightning Strikes Twice. This was a really, really interesting take on the Flash mythology. Now, I haven't read, this is the first time I've actually read a dedicated Flash comic book. For the most part, my experience with him has either been through the TV show, through Justice League, like the comics, also the movies, but like the comics, and then somewhat through like Nightwing, because he's friends with some of the Flashes. So, but I really like this. One of my favorite things about this was that at the beginning, it seemed like the bad guy was just gonna be this run-of-the-mill kind of speedster bad guy, but then they added this personal element to it that just twisted that and made him so more interesting as a villain that I'm like, I can't wait to see this new villain in further Flash comics. In this particular volume, Barry has just come off of the whole convergence thing, and he knows something's wrong with the timelines, but he's also having to deal with the fact that all of a sudden there are a whole bunch of speedsters in Central City? Is it Central City? Yes, it is Central City. Okay, great. It's so hard when so many of these are they're just cities. And it's like, which city is it? So I really enjoy this. I gave this 4 stars. I highly recommend it. If you want to learn something about the Flash, you should pick it up. The second exam that I finished for my o.w.l.s was the Potions exam, and for that you were supposed to read a sequel. And for that I read The Flash Rebirth Volume 2, Speed of Darkness. This follows off of Volume 1, so there's not that much I can tell you about it, but I will say that we get to see some Wally West, like, in action in this one. I really like this. I like that we get Wally in this. I like that we get to see Iris in this. We see her a little bit in the first volume and a little bit of Wally in the first, but this one's really more focused on them, and I really enjoy it. I do happen to ship Barry and Iris, so anytime I get to see them together, that is fantastic. I do want to mention, like, one of the things I really enjoy about The Flash is that it is as forensic focused as Batman can be at times, but he also has a much better sense of humor. I'm gonna be honest. Bruce is a little Bruce at times, which is why you need the Robins. Otherwise, you're just like, dude, lighten up. It's getting dark in here. But Barry definitely has a much better sense of humor. He's kind of punny sometimes. I love him. I'm really enjoying him, and I cannot wait to continue on with this particular series in the DC Comics line. Oh, I gave that one, I gave 3 stars. It was not quite as tightly written, I felt, as Volume 1 was, and I didn't feel like I wasn't as much a fan of the storyline, but I still did really enjoy it. The next exam that I finished was Arithmancy, which was to read a book by more than one author, and for that I read Batman, The Flash, The Button. This is by Tom King and Joshua Williamson, so the 2 respective writers for the respective comics. It's Barry and Batman working together to figure out why this random smiley face button has just suddenly appeared in Bruce's Batcave. If you look at the picture, you might recognize the Watchmen button smiley face type thing. I know it's later than the volumes of The Flash that I've read up to, but I've been wanting to read it for forever because it does have a lot to do with everything from Batman 24 on. It's part of why Bruce is on the path that he is on currently in the Rebirth line is partly to do with what's in this comic, and it does make a lot of things make more sense. I thought it was very interesting to see the way the 2 of them both go about like solving a crime, solving a mystery, and watching them work together is just so much fun. And I know that there's another crossover that Josh Williamson and Tom King have planned it might have already happened by this point. I'm a little bit behind. So I'm really excited to read that, having really liked The Button. I ended up giving that one 3 stars. Now we're going to be moving on to the audiobooks that I have read this month. The first one I read to complete my herbology exam, which was read a book with a plant on the cover. And that book is The Last of August by Brittany Cavallaro. I am loving this series. I really enjoyed this book. I wasn't quite happy with the ending, but luckily I had the next book, so like once I finished all of the books I'd been reading for my owls, or not reading, as the case may be, as you'll see in May, I jumped right into it. This is Jamie and Charlotte, and Jamie is the descendant of James Watson, and Charlotte is the descendant of Sherlock Holmes, and they end up meeting at a boarding school in Connecticut, and they have to solve a crime because they are the prime suspects in that crime. So in order to prove themselves innocent, they have to be like, oh, well, actually, here's the person that committed the murder. Murder in a boarding school in Connecticut with crime solving. What more could you ask for? I really enjoyed this. I can't tell you too much about what this is about because it spoils things. But yes, it's so good, and I just want you to read it because one of the things I really love about the series is the interplay between Charlotte and Jamie and how they balance each other out and how, like, they're just so cute together. They work so well. They're disasters. It's amazing. It was a good series, okay? The next exam I finished was for Defense Against the Dark Arts, and that was to read a book that's title starts with R. For that, I read The Reader by Tracy Chee. It is the first book in the Sea of Ink and Gold series. I liked this. I had a few, I just not in a good place for audiobooks when I was listening to this, so there are a few places where I was a little muddled. I think maybe upon rereading it, it could be a 5-star depending on where the series goes and whether or not I like the series. This one was really interesting. It's a very, really interesting fantasy world where books don't exist. There is one book, and there are these people tasked with guarding this book. And then you have the main character, Sophia, and she has spent the last several years of her life on the run with a thief named Nin, and basically people are trying to find Sophia. She doesn't know it though, and when she discovers this, she doesn't know why. All she knows is that she has this thing that is called a book, and she is able to read this book, and not many people are able to read the book. So it's going back and forth between Sophia's story and the story of something else that is happening, and I liked that kind of back and forth storytelling style, because sometimes it was a little jarring, and you'd be like, wait, what? Why are we talking about these people? But in the end, it all does come together. I really loved the world building in this. I loved the character arcs, Sophia's character arc, and then there's a boy named Archer who has an amazing character arc. I can't wait to see where they go in the next book. I'm just really and plus, oh, look at this cover. It's so good. And so I really do, I want to know what happens in the next book. There's so many questions right now that are unanswered. I need answers, guys. I need answers, okay? I need them. So I guess I'll have to read the next book soon. But I did really enjoy it. I highly recommend it. It was really fun. Now on to the regular books that I read. And as you have probably guessed, because y'all are smart and can do Alright, and the final book that I read this month, I read to complete my exam for Ancient Runes, and that is and the prompt for that was to read a retelling. And so I chose to read a retelling of Greek mythology. That's right, I read a Percy Jackson book. I read The Lost Hero by Rick Riordan. This is the first book in the Heroes of Olympus series, and I love this series so much. Look at how much I tapped up this thing. I am thoroughly enjoying annotating these bad boys. I love this series. This is my favorite series of all time. You have to understand. I gave this 5 stars. Oh, speaking of which, I gave Last of August 4 stars and The Reader 4 stars. But I gave this 5 stars because it is quite possibly one of my favorite books of all time. I love it. If you want a lot of my thoughts about this book, you can go to our live show that we did about it. It does have spoilers though, so if you haven't read it, you probably don't want to read it yet, or watch it yet. But this is about Jason, Piper, and Leo, and they have just discovered that they are Greek demigods, and it's kind of ruining their life. Now, Jason has the added bonus of he doesn't remember anything besides when he wakes up at the very beginning of the book. So he is taken off to Camp Half-Blood. He has no idea what his past is, where he's from, why he's there. He just knows that when they get to Camp Half-Blood, they are sent on a quest by Hera, who's not a big fan of demigods, especially not demigods like Jason. What that means, you'll have to read it to find out. This one is such a fantastic book. It's got a great romance. It's got a great friendship. The best part about this is they are all friends first. Despite the wonderful pining that happens and goes on in this, they're all friends first, and I absolutely adore that, and I love what it's setting up for the next books. A little frustrated by the fact that there's no Percy in it, but that's okay. Rick makes up for that later on in the series, okay? I have forgiven him for that because what he's given me later on in the series, it's fine. Anyways, I highly recommend that you read the Percy Jackson series, which you can't see right now because Barry's face is in the way, and then the Heroes of Olympus series because they're amazing. And yes, they're middle grade, and yes, they're a little bit, I don't know, maybe they're a little bit childish, but I just enjoy the humor. I enjoy the wittiness that comes out of this. One of my favorite things about reading middle grade is just realizing how careful the authors have to be with their words. Now, obviously, this is a chunker. This is a thick book. So Rick has a little more room with the Heroes of Olympus series to tell his story. He can be a little more wordy, which he definitely needs because he has 3 different points of view in this, although they work perfectly. But like the Percy Jackson series, because they're such shorter books, just reading how he structures his sentences to give you the most information you can have in fewer words, it's just, he's so descriptive in the way he does it, and it just makes you really have an appreciation for what YA and middle grade authors have to do. This is more of a crossover series because I think most of the characters in this, they range between 14 and 16, so it's kind of middle grade in the way that it's told, but the characters are older. So, you need to read it though. Now it's time for me to admit which books I didn't read last month, and that's 6 of them. Okay, so I was also supposed to read last month A Court of Frost and Starlight, which I don't know that I'm ever going to read that apparently because I keep trying to and it never gets read. Eye of the World, Ghosts of Gotham, Scythe, City of Bones, Truly Devious. And none of those got read. I started Eye of the World. I got almost to the end of Eye of the World, but I wasn't able to quite finish it by April. So I'll tell you all of my thoughts on that one in May. I have also started Scythe. I'm really enjoying that. I need to get back to reading it, but I have other books that I have to read first. So we'll get back to that one. I don't know when I'm reading City of Bones because, I'm supposed to be on my 3rd Moral Instruments book right now. Oh boy. Okay, anyways, that doesn't matter. So, the rest of them are going to be getting moved to subsequent TBRs so that I can read them. I'm also trying to finish Ghosts of Gotham. I'm not sure if that's happening because at the moment, I'm not really digging the story. It's okay. But it could change. It could change, and I got it as an ARC, so I feel like I need to read it. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know down in the description box something that you have read recently and had feelings about. Just let me know. They can be positive